welcome to a new ship tour, and today we're going to take a look at the Queen Anne, a brand new ship of the Cunard line, taken into service in May 2024. And as always, we're starting with a few general facts. The ship is 322 meters long, 35.6 meters wide, has a gross tonnage of 113,000 and can take up to almost 3,000 passengers on board. She is a Pinnacle class ship, slightly modified, and currently the 4th ship in a fleet of Cunard. She was built by Fincantieri from 2022 to 2024. She's the second biggest ship in the fleet after the Queen Mary II. Of course, we're starting our ship tour on the lowest deck as always. We're now at the front part of deck 1. Here we have the fitness center, which you can see here. And of course, we also take a look at the pictures as always in my ship tours. This ship has faced some criticism for its design, some stating that the ship doesn't look like a Cunard ship or it's not following the traditions of Cunard, as it is a bit more modern than the other ships. But we will take a closer look at this. Here we are in the spa area. Of course, I can't show that much of the spa area, as you can only access it if you have an appointment and then there are other people, so it's not possible for me to film. Here we are in the cabin hallway, and as you can see, there are different colors and arrows on the carpet, and that's not just design, but it's a very smart idea because it's showing you the closest way to the next staircase. There are 3 staircases, each coming with a different color. We have the red one, the yellow one, and the blue one. Blue in the front, yellow in the middle, and red the rear part of the ship. And those arrows are always showing in the direction of the next staircase, so it's very good for your orientation. Here we are in the grand lobby, the heart of the ship, and here we have a small library, which actually is a drawing room and a games room as well, and also the purser's office. Here we can already see the beautiful design of this ship, and in my opinion it is a very typical ship for Cunard, as we have a modern but traditional style. It's a quite good combination of modernness and the tradition of Cunard. It looks very different to other new ships that have been built in 2024, for example. Still looks much more traditional, but in a modern style. So I think it's a very good combination of the tradition of Cunard and a little modernization of the fleet. We will see this throughout the video. It always looks like a Cunard ship in my opinion, so I cannot understand the criticism. To me, the Queen Anne is a very beautiful ship. Here we can see the pictures of the drawing room, the atrium, the card room, and also the purser's office, the reception. And then we are continuing on, heading aft of the ship. Here we can see the red arrows telling us that the red staircase at the aft of the ship is the closest one from here. And here you can see this is the red staircase. And I really love the idea. When I first heard about this, I was like, how could a red staircase look typical for a Cunard ship? How could it look luxurious and nice? But as you can see, it works out quite well because they've chosen very nice tones of red. And in the meantime, we are now on deck number 2, which is a deck with only public areas. Here on deck 2, at the aft of the ship, we have the Britannia restaurant, the most important restaurant and the biggest restaurant on board. It is the main restaurant. Here you have a table for the whole cruise, and there are 2 seatings. This is the restaurant for almost all guests on board, as long as you're not booked in one of the more expensive cabins or suites. Then you have your own restaurant, as cabins have different categories. And if you're in a higher cabin category, you will have your own restaurant. If you booked a standard cabin, you will have a table here in the Britannia restaurant. Here we have the gallery. As Cunard ships are mainly intended for a bit more traditional passengers, the gallery is also a bit bigger than on other ships, as there are probably more people interested in art on board of a Cunard ship than on a party ship. And that's why this is a quite spacious area. You can take a look at the pieces of art, but of course you can also buy them here. Here we can see the pictures of the art gallery, and we are now continuing on heading into the next bar on board, which is one of my favorites. It is the chart room, traditional on Cunard ships, and it also has a traditional look, again with a modern twist. We have very colorful but still elegant look. It is a quite big bar, but with a smart layout, so it doesn't feel too big. It still feels small and private, so it's a really nice design and I really love the look of it. Here we are heading to the bar of the chart room, which actually is a lobby bar. It is located in the grand lobby, but it's a bit separated from it, so it still has a nice and calm atmosphere. But as you can see, here we are in the grand lobby once again. Here we can see the pictures where we can see the colors a bit better. So as you can see, it is quite colorful, but still looking very elegant and in my opinion, very Cunard-like. We're now heading into the grand lobby again. Here we can see this wonderful artwork in the middle, which is the centerpiece of the lobby. It is a former ocean liner. And here we have another restaurant. This is the Britannia Club, which is one category higher than the Britannia restaurant. So this is the restaurant for guests who have a slightly more expensive cabin. So if you have a Britannia Club cabin, this will be your restaurant. It's much smaller, but also looking nice, a bit more luxurious, a bit more private, but still located in the main part of the ship. There are some more restaurants for the suites. They are in a separate area, which is only accessible for suite passengers. We are continuing heading to the front of the ship. Here we are in the middle staircase, the yellow one. And from here we are now heading further on to the front. We're heading forward and we're now walking past the voyage, sails and shore experiences. So here you can book your next cruise, and of course you can also book your shore excursions. As always on every cruise ship, I highly recommend booking excursions in advance to make sure that you will get the excursion you want to have and it's not fully booked at the time you arrive on the ship. But if you want to book something spontaneously, you can do that here. Now we're in the next traditional room, and that's the Queen's Room. That's the traditional ballroom on board. This was actually my least favorite lounge on board because it's not as traditional and elegant as the other rooms, and also the Queen's Room on other Cunard ships is looking a bit more luxurious. So it is still a beautiful room, just compared to the other extremely beautiful rooms. It's falling behind a bit in my opinion. Still, Cunard is following the tradition. We still have the big ballroom, the Queen's Room, over 2 floors. Of course, it's coming with its own bar. It's just that I'm not the biggest fan of the design. In my opinion, it could have seen a bit more progressive design. We're now heading further forward, and here we are at Bright Lights Society. Bright Lights Society is a brand new concept on board. It is a bar where you need to make a reservation and you will get a special show here in this bar. It's comparable with a dinner show, just that you're not gonna have dinner here, but it is a bar, so it's combining bar and a dinner show. Quite new concept. On my cruise it was always fully booked, so make sure to book in advance if you want to experience Bright Lights Society. Right next to it, another very traditional part of each Cunard ship, and of course also of each British cruise ship, and that is a traditional pub. On Cunard's ships it's always called the Golden Lion, and as you can see it just looks like a typical British pub. From here we can head onto the front, and now we are going into the Royal Court Theatre. The Royal Court Theatre is a pretty big theatre on board with a beautiful design. I would say the theatre on board of the Queen Victoria is a bit more beautiful, a bit more extraordinary, but also here we have a very beautiful design. The theatre is pretty spacious. As most shows will be shown twice due to the 2 seatings, there will be for sure enough space for all passengers that want to attend a show. We're now leaving the theatre again, and now we're back at Bright Light Society and the Golden Line, and here we have stairs up to the next deck, deck number 3. We're now gonna use those stairs as we've now seen all public areas of deck number 2. So next deck is deck number 3. We're at the front part of the ship still, and we're now at the casino. So of course on international ships there's always a casino on board. Here it's a rather small casino compared to American ships, for example, but still we have a quite good selection. So if you're into gambling, this is your place to be. And we're now back at the front at the Royal Court Theatre, which stretches over 2 decks. We can take a look from the upper deck here. So once again, you can see it is pretty spacious and there's a lot of seats available. We're now heading aft, but before continuing taking a look at the public areas of this deck, we're gonna head out on the promenade. Also, this is very traditional and something you won't find on most newer ships. There is a walk around promenade, so you can walk all the way around the ship on the promenade. Here we are at the bow of the ship. Now we are on the port side, and we can now walk all the way heading aft, and we can walk all the way around the ship, and that's also what we're gonna do now. Of course, in a time lapse, it will take some time. 1 lap around the ship is approximately 700 meters, so it takes a while. It is a traditional promenade, not like on some new ships where you'll find restaurants and entertainment on the promenade. It is still a promenade just for having a walk, in case of emergency, of course, to enter the lifeboats. And if you're on one of the lower decks and just want to take a quick picture outside, this is the place to go. It is still a traditional promenade, so it is a bit smaller than on newer ships, but of course you still have possibility. But still, of course, there are a few benches if you want to sit down, and you can enjoy a beautiful view. So as you've seen, we have been at the back. We also took a look into the second deck of the Britannia restaurant, and now we're back at the front in the blue staircase, and now we're heading aft again, but this time inside the ship. We're back at the casino now. We're gonna take a look at the casino bar here on the left side. Like on most ships, there is a bar next to the casino, but here on this ship it is separated, so you can also use the bar if you're not into gambling. You don't want to spend your time in the casino. It's on the other side of the ship, still in the casino but separated, so you can also use it as a regular bar. We're continuing heading aft, walking past the casino, and now we're going back into the Queen's Room. As I said, the Queen's Room stretches over 2 decks. We're now at the upper deck. Before reaching the Queen's Room, we have the Cunard shop. Here you can get a lot of Cunard labeled products. They have a quite nice selection. I found a few things that I really like. I really love the design that Cunard is using for their own merchandise. So this is the shop to go if you want things like this. Here you can see Queen's Room again, and here we also have a quite big selection of different shops and boutiques. Here you can buy things like clothing, handbags, jewelry, perfume, alcohol, snacks. Everything is available here in those shops. There's a quite good selection, of course. Shopping is also an important part of a cruise, so here we have some boutiques. Here we can see the pictures of the upper part of the Queen's Room and the shops. And now we're continuing, heading into the middle of the ship. Here we are in the yellow staircase again, and here we are in the grand lobby on the 3rd deck. We can take a look down to this beautiful atrium of the ship. You can also see the beautiful artwork, the ocean liner in the middle once again. On this deck in the grand lobby, we have on the port side the grand lobby boutiques. These are the most expensive boutiques. Here you can get the most luxurious goods. Here we can see them on the left and on the right side, and here we can see it on the picture as well. And on the other side we have a lounge, that is the Carinthia lounge, also named after a former ocean liner of Cunard. So more shops here in the middle, and then here on the starboard side we have the Carinthia lounge. Also coming with a unique design. This one actually doesn't look too much like a Cunard lounge. It is not as elegant as the other ones. It's a bit more casual, but also looking nice. But the bar itself is looking very luxurious and Cunard-like again. Here we can see the Corinthia lounge on the picture. It is a rather small lounge, not too many seats, typical atrium lounge. And from here we can head further on aft of the ship, going through the photography center. Here you can buy all the pictures the photographers are taking during the cruise. Of course, everything is digital nowadays, so pictures are only printed if you ordered them, to not have too many waste of papers. And here, right at the aft of the ship, we have the second deck of the Britannia restaurant. We've already seen that, so we can now go up a few decks. We can skip the decks 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 because those are decks only with cabins. There are no public areas to see, so we can continue straight away at deck number 9. On deck number 9 we have cabins and public areas. Cabins are only at the front, so we can straight away take a look at the public areas here at the aft of the ship. We're heading outside to the Panorama Pool Club, which is the typical outdoor terrace at the rear part of the ship, like on all Cunard ships. Also here we have this big outdoor space, big terrace. Comes with its own bar, of course, with a big pool and also 2 hot tubs. Here you can see the pool, and on the left side we have the hot tubs, and here you can see this big spacious area. Behind the pool there is a lot of space for sun loungers. It's a quite open deck, and here you can also enjoy the view over the stern wave. Here you can see the picture of this whole deck. So you can see a lot of space available. Here you can see the bar once again. And now we are heading up one more deck. We're going up to deck number 10. We will now jump from deck 9 to the upper decks and back down again, because a few parts are only accessible from specific stairs, just like this part. Here we just have another small outdoor terrace, space for some more sun loungers. And then behind those wind blockers we have the outdoor area of the Ajiva restaurant, which is the Japanese restaurant on board, specialty restaurant. We can also head inside, take a look, but we will take a closer look later on. Here on the right side you see a glass door. According to the deck plan, you can access a sun deck from here where you can play shuffleboard, but I think it's part of the suites area because you cannot go through this door, and I didn't find a way to get there, so I think it's probably part of the ship-in-ship concept, with an area only accessible for guests of the suites. So we are heading back down again through the outdoor dining area, back to the sun deck and back down to deck number 9, heading to the port side of the ship, and here we can go up again. Here we have the same sun deck, and here we have the outdoor terrace of the Sir Samuel's restaurant. The wind knocked down a plant here, and we will take a look at the restaurant itself also later on. We're back down on deck number 9 again. Here we have the alfresco dining, so also here you can enjoy food outside, still wind covered, but it is a possibility to have food outside. We have a big stage, so this area can also be used for shows and entertainment. Here we can see a picture of the very big swimming pool and the hot tubs, and here we can see the seating areas that are also outside but still covered, so quite nice if you want to be enjoying some fresh air if the weather is not good. We're back up at deck 10, and now we can take a closer look at those restaurants here. On the right side we have Sir Samuel's. This is a specialty restaurant which is not included, and it is a steakhouse. In my opinion, a very nicely designed restaurant, looking very luxurious. One of the most beautiful restaurants on board in my opinion, and from some parts you also have a view over the pool deck and the stern wave. I was trying out this restaurant, so we'll see a bit more about this in the upcoming videos. Right on the other side we have the Ajiva restaurant, which is the Japanese restaurant. We've already shortly seen it. Here we can take a closer look. It's also looking nice, I would say not as nice as the Sesamios, but also looking quite beautiful. Also, this one is a specialty restaurant which is not included in the cruise fare. We're now heading back down, going back down to deck number 9. And here we can take a look at some more restaurants. Here we have some more specialty restaurants. Here we have the Tramonto restaurant, which is a Mediterranean Italian restaurant. Also not included, another specialty restaurant, and directly on the other side we have the 4th specialty restaurant, which is the Aranya, which is an Indian restaurant. So for these restaurants you need to pay extra. They are right next to the Artisan's Food Hall, so they can be used as an extension if there are not enough seats available at the buffet restaurant. Here we are at the Artisan's Food Hall, as I said, the buffet restaurant on board, where you have different stations where you can order your food, different themed stations. And it works like that: you go to one of those stations and then you tell the crew member what you want to have and they will put it on the plate for you. So it's not a real self-service restaurant like on many other cruise ships. So you need to order the food here, but in a buffet style. I kind of like this idea. It's a bit better for hygienic reasons and also to avoid food waste, as you cannot take too much on the plate and then throw everything away. If you want more, you have to go back again and order once again. So you can get as much as you want, but it's not self-service. The restaurant is also looking quite nicely for a buffet restaurant, and it is also very spacious, so I think you should always get a seat here. We're heading back up to deck number 10. And here we can take a look at the area that is only intended for passengers that have booked a suite. Here we can see the Queen's Lounge, and from this lounge we can access the Queen's Grill restaurant and the Princess Grill restaurant. These are the 2 restaurants that I mentioned earlier on that are only accessible for guests that have booked a suite. We're now on deck 11, and here we have a sun deck which is exclusively to be used by guests of the suite. So this is the ship-in-ship concept, a very spacious area only for the suite passengers. We're back down at deck 9 and the area that is accessible for everybody. That was everything I can show you from the Grills Terrace and the suite areas, as I didn't have access to this whole area as I haven't booked a suite. We're now at the Pavilion, which is the 2nd pool on board, the covered pool. So if the weather is not good, the glass roof is covering the pool and it is nice and warm inside. And if the weather is good, you can open the glass roof and you have a 2nd outdoor pool. Here we have a grill, a gelateria and a bar, so you can get different types of food and drinks. Here as well we have a lot of different seating options available. So also a very nice and beautiful area. And from here we can now head up again to deck number 10. As I said, we're jumping from deck 9 to the upper decks and back down, as all these parts I've already shown you from deck 10 and deck 11 are only accessible from some special stairs, not from everywhere, as the decks 10, 11, 12 and 14 are not completely connected throughout the length of the ship, as there is a Grills Terrace and Grill Restaurant area in between, which is not accessible for me. So we are now on deck 10 again. We're now taking a look at the upper part of the pavilion. Here we have another bar, and we also have the Wellness Cafe, which is another possibility to get some food. As you can see, there's a small kitchen here, and you can order smaller meals and dishes here at the Wellness Cafe. From here you have a quite nice view over the pavilion pool, and of course there's not only a pool but also some hot tubs available. And here we can see the Wellness Cafe and the menu, and here we can see it on the picture as well. Now we're gonna walk around the whole pavilion on the upper deck, and then we are continuing back on deck 9. Here we can see the pictures, and as you can see we have a lot of different seating options available, and there are always some small dividers in between, so it doesn't feel like one huge space but like several small spaces with a lot of privacy. Doesn't feel like those cramped sun decks on some ships where there are just hundreds of sun lounges next to each other. Here you have a lot of privacy, so that is a quite nice design. I was traveling on the ship in January, where not many people wanted to be on the sun deck, so I don't know how it is looking if the ship is fully booked and it's quite good weather, if there's enough space here around the pool, but on the cruise I was on there was enough space for everybody. Here we can see the pool again, and in the front we have a huge screen. That's also why we have a lot of these blue and red colors here. That was of course coming from the screen. Also here we have comfortable seating areas next to the windows. We have sun lounges, so also here for every taste we have a suitable seating option. Here we can take another look at the pool and the sliding glass roof, and now we're heading on to the cabins here on deck 10. What I do not like is this door. It looks like I'm going into a crew area, and it's not very clear that this is actually a public area. But if you go through the store, you will end up in this hallway where you can find the harbor badges. I really like that they are still showing them on other ships. You won't find them in the public areas anymore. We're now going back up. We can skip deck 10 because we've already seen all public areas here. So we are now on deck 11. And here on deck 11 we have quite a weird outdoor area, because we can now walk all the way around the glass roof. But that's actually it. There is not really a public area here. You have a few seating options, and there's another glass doorway you can access the grill's terrace, but that's not accessible for me. And here we have the wellness studio. And on my cruise it was mainly unused. Quite an empty space, looking nicely, but I was not 100% sure what it is used for. Maybe it is used for some courses, but there's not too much here, so it's a quite an empty space, which is also not too easy to access and not too easy to find. It is covered, so I'm not 100% sure what the purpose of this area is, but what I can tell you is that from here you have another fantastic view over the pavilion pool area. We're now continuing heading back to the front, and now we're gonna take a look at the last decks, deck number 12 and deck 14. We are starting on deck 12. Here we have a small outdoor area which belongs to the boardroom. I'm going to take a look at the boardroom in a second. And we have a small sun deck, and now we're heading inside. We can take a look at the boardroom, which is a room that can be used for weddings or for meetings, so this room can be rented out. And in front of it we have the Admiral's Lounge, which is yet another room that you can rent out for special events, for example. And then in front of it we have Churchill's. Churchill's is the cigar lounge, so smoking is permitted here in this lounge, but it's important to note that only cigars are allowed, so you cannot go here to smoke your cigarette. This is a lounge only intended for smoking cigars. There's also a selection of cigars you can buy. You can see that here on the right side. It's a quite stylish and nice lounge, but very important to note, only for smoking cigars, not for cigarettes. And now we're heading into my favorite part of this ship, and by far, as on all Cunard ships I've been on, also here on the Queen Anne, this is my favorite lounge, the Commodore Club. Commodore's Club is the panoramic lounge. It's right at the front with huge panoramic windows overlooking the bow of the ship, looking in the direction of travel, so the best view you can have on a ship. And I really love that there is a lounge like this available on a brand new ship like the Queen Anne, because on most other brand new cruise ships these areas are always reserved for the guests that have booked a suite. So on many ships regular passengers have no space where they can look over the ship's bow, enjoy this beautiful view, but here on the Queen Anne we have finally again a ship with a panoramic lounge overlooking the ship's bow with the best view. So imagine sitting here in this beautifully styled lounge, looking out of the window, enjoying the fjords of Norway, for example. This is what cruising means to me. This is for me the most important part of a cruise ship, I can actually enjoy the view over the ocean or of its scenery. And here on the Queen Anne I can do this in a very beautiful lounge with a nice style, comfortable seating, and it's also a quite big lounge, so there are a lot of seats available. I spent a lot of time here on my cruise in this lounge, and almost always I got a seat by the window, so it has a very nice and decent size. And I really, as I said, love that there is a panoramic lounge available. Now we're heading into another traditional part of Cunard ships, and that's the library. As you can see, it is very spacious with a huge selection of books that is also traditional for Cunard. So of course also here on the Queen Anne we have a big library. As you can see, the books are locked up, so you can only take a book during the opening times of the library. As you know, I'm always doing my ship tours early in the morning when everybody else is sleeping, so I don't have to blur too many faces, but that's why the library was still closed. Behind this door we have the zone, which is the area for kids and teens, coming also with a small outdoor area, and we are now up on deck 14. There's no deck 13. So from deck 12 we are heading directly to deck 14, and here on deck 14 we have the sky bar, the highest bar on board overlooking the whole ship, looking in the direction of the funnel. This is the view we have from up here, so it is also kind of windproofed as it is located against the direction of travel. And now we can walk to the front of the ship. Here you can play table tennis, can play golf, and there's also a putting green available on the starboard side of the ship. And then right at the front we have the observation deck, which is the second possibility here on board of the Queen Anne to overlook the ship's bow. We're now heading to this part here at the front. Also this part is accessible for all guests, so I really like the concept. Of course, a new ship needs to have the ship-in-ship concept, where you have an area exclusively reserved for guests that have booked a suite. But I really like that it is not the very best part of the ship at the front, where everybody wants to enjoy the view. So here on the Queen Anne, everybody has the possibility to enjoy this fantastic view, and that's what I really like about this ship. It's not only made for suite passengers, it's made for everybody, but still the guests who've booked a suite have their own area. So this is a very good solution for this kind of problem. On the other side, on the port side, we have a paddle tennis court. So here you can play paddle tennis and other sports. Of course, it is completely covered with a net, so balls cannot fall into the ocean. Here you can see it, and of course we have a picture of it as well. And that's actually the last public area. We have now seen all public areas. We're now heading back to the sky bar, which is the bar where we will end our ship tour. We have now seen all public areas of the beautiful Queen Anne. I really love this ship, and I can tell you, for me it's one of the most beautiful new builds of the last years. I've really enjoyed staying on the Queen Anne. I cannot understand why some people don't like the ship. For me it is a perfect, wonderful cruise ship following the traditions of Cunard. That's it for the ship tour. I hope you enjoyed it. In the next video we'll show you my cabin and the life on board. Here you can see when this video will be uploaded, the name of the song, and as always I'd like to say thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.